It's time for another edition of Around the Nest 2.0, where we go up, down, left, and right through the Blue Jays system to talk all things Blue Jays minor leaguers and have some fun in the process. I'm your host, Tyler Zickel, and today, the Nest nearly full once again. We've got correspondents from every level of the system. Gregg Caserta, AAA Buffalo, the one and only Bob Lipman making his debut on Around the Nest 2.0 for AA New Hampshire, and AT himself, Andrew Thriffiley, down there at Low A Dunedin. Gentlemen, happy Friday. Welcome back to the Nest. And I don't know about the three of you, plus our producer, Leo Mui, makes a quartet, plus me. It's a great day to be in the Jays system. How we feeling, starting with Gregg Caserta at the top of the system?
Doing all right. We've had a pretty exciting series here against the Rail Riders. Benches almost cleared last night, and we had 3 ejections in a span of 2 hitters. We had Mike Ford, Socrates Brito get ejected in their at-bats. Then manager Doug Davis got ejected right before they went to the half-inning break. So tensions are starting to bubble here, and it's the first time that the 6-game series is starting to get nasty, and we got 3 games left. So it should be interesting these next couple of days.
Gregg, put a pin in that because I want to come back to that and unpack it a little bit as we first welcome officially our other 2 correspondents, Mr. Bob Lipman, the voice of the Granite State, not just the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Bob, so good to see you. You're reporting live from Hadlock Field, are you not?
Yes, and wearing a jacket today where it is 59 degrees in Portland, Maine today. Another one of those cool, kind of fogged in kind of days, but getting ready for game 4 of a 6-game series. Fisher Cats got a win last night, and the Fisher Cats got a save last night for the first time all season long, a 5-3 win over Portland.
We're going to dive into that as well. And before we do, let's say hello to the man on the streets for the Dunedin Blue Jays. Andrew, how you doing? You're reporting live from the dugout in Lakeland. How's it going?
I'm great. It's fighting the elements a little bit here with the BP going on in the background. So if you hear something, I apologize. But on a 2-game win streak, hopefully we can keep it going tonight.
This is what we sign up for with Around the Nest 2.0. We take you how we can get you. And in the dugout in Lakeland is exactly where we want you. We get a little extra of that ambient sound. But we'll go back to the top of the ladder and return to Gregg Caserta. Triple G, let's talk about those tensions, especially because you've got the Blue Jays affiliate taking on the Yankees affiliate. So there's already a little bit of that AL East baggage before any pitches are thrown between the Rail Riders and the Bisons.
And I think as a guy that's a Yankees fan and keeps close tabs on what's happening in the Bronx, I wish that the Major League team had as much passion and fire as the AAA team. I mean, they kind of get bowled over by the Red Sox over the weekend. And now here we are talking about the AAA teams. And it just kind of popped up out of nowhere where Anthony Kay came high and tight the other night in game 1, and he hit Hoy Park, and then some chirping started coming out of the dugouts. And I think this is where we have the 6-game series where I think they just get tired of each other. The umpires are getting worn out a little bit. And so the tempers are flaring a little bit. I hope that after last night with the 3 ejections that things have cooled off a little bit because it's not something that you want to see. I mean, it definitely adds an extra level of excitement in certain regards, but you also don't want to see anybody come out and get hurt if there is a brawl of some sort. So exciting at times, yes, but I also think after one night of it, it's also unnecessary moving forward.
Looking ahead to the rest of this series, certainly some things to circle as the Bisons have dipped a little bit after that hot start to the year. And of course, the Yankees, they just continue to reload their minor league affiliates. We see it in Somerset in AA. We see it down in Tampa in Low A. These teams just seem to show up on a different level year in and year out. So looking ahead for the rest of this weekend, what are some things that the Bisons need to do, not necessarily to right the ship, but maybe get back some of that mojo that they had in May?
Well, I just think the lineup has really been mediocre, to be very honest with you. I know last night they put up 10 runs for a 10-0 shutout in game 2, but that was just their 3rd game in the last 3 weeks in which they cleared 5 runs. So the pitching's been great the whole time. They still lead all of AAA East in terms of staff ERA. They've been pitching very well. They just haven't been able to hit. And, the good news is that you get Jared Hoying, a veteran, 32-year-old guy who was up with the Rangers for a couple of years not too long ago. And he brings a lefty bat, which you've been lacking because of the injury to Josh Palacios. So maybe that stabilizes the middle of the lineup a little bit. For a couple of days there, they were playing shorthanded because both Breivik Valera and Forrest Wall went to the IL. Those are two notable absences in the lineup, but now at least they've got 3 bench players, which is something that they didn't have. They were carrying 2 guys on the bench. So maybe last night is what gets them back on the right path. I think when this team scores 5 runs, they win a lot of ball games, but scoring 5 runs, at least up until last night, had not been easy to come by.
Tell us a little bit about the emergence of Cullen Large at AAA. This is a guy who's made his way through the entire Jays system. Now he is at the top of the level and certainly looking to break through, though not a guy that you'd necessarily look at first at a first glance of the Bisons roster. He went deep in that doubleheader yesterday and had opportunities to continue to contribute. What have you liked from Cullen so far this year?
I think the fact is that he hasn't shown his frustrations because it was a rough couple of weeks for him, Zick, where the average really plummeted. He was sitting below 200 going into last night, gets the offense on the board at the end of game 1. They avoid the shutout as he goes deep for the first time, and then follows it up by reaching base in all 4 plate appearances in game 2. So maybe, we always talk about one knock, one bloop, sometimes a broken bat single is what gets a guy right. Maybe that home run is what turns him around because it obviously affected the offense on a grander scale where everybody contributed in that 10-0 win in the nightcap. So I think with Cullen, it's obviously tough. We've talked about guys that are hard to evaluate because of the lost 2020 season. He's a guy that certainly falls under that umbrella because there are a lot of guys that are losing a year of development. And now they're trying to condense all of that into the first month of the season. And that's not really fair when you're talking about guys that haven't really hit higher level pitching. Cullen's one of those guys. And yeah, he's had a couple of nice moments here. And I hope that after last night, that continues for him.
How about on the mound, specifically Jacob Waggishback? This is a guy that you've been familiar with, Gregg, for a long time. Your former club, the Reading Fightin' Phils, he was there for a couple of seasons back when the 2 of us were in the Eastern League. May it rest in peace. And for you, getting to see Waggishback post big league appearances last year, now doing his thing every 5th day for AAA Buffalo, and really one of those guys on the cusp that you'd have to imagine is on the short list to get that call up should there be an injury or some roster shuffling with the Blue Jays. What do you like from Wags?
I like Wags because he's a guy that you can talk to any day. You could go up to him the day he's pitching. It could be an hour before he's on the mound. He's always been level-headed. I don't think his mentality or his demeanor has changed in the 5-6 years that I've known him, which is great because some guys, they do change as time goes on. You get that opportunity in the majors, and early on he had some success. Then he got humbled a little bit. I know that last year was not what he wanted. He got DFA'd and is no longer on the 40-man roster. But I think for him, the strikeout numbers have always been there. He's still averaging more than a strikeout per inning. His release is still very repeatable. He's very smooth for a guy that's as big as he is on the mound. I don't know long-term, Tyler, if him being a starter in the majors is the best thing for him. I think with his stuff, being an up and down guy with a big fastball and a good curveball, that he'd be better served as a 1 and 2 inning reliever, a guy that you can stretch out from time to time because he's mostly spent time as a starter. But I think long-term for him, he'll find his way back into a major league rotation somewhere. I just think that moving forward, it would be better served as a reliever.
Speaking of getting a taste of major league action, Gregg, you were not abducted by aliens as we thought you might have been 2 weeks ago on episode 3. You missed out on episode 4, and you did so because you got a call up for an opportunity to call some Mets games in the big leagues. First of all, congratulations. We've got a Nestor going to the show, which is terrific. Can you just tell us all about how you found out, how you got the opportunity, and just take us through what your day was like, especially for that big league debut on that game 1 that you did?
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And you can hold on 1 second there. I'm in the middle of something very important. These guys don't understand what we're doing here. So I've been trying for a couple of years to get in with the Mets. A good friend of mine, Ray Martell, has been the executive producer of their radio broadcast, and he's been trying to get me just some fill-in work here and there, just doing pre and post or maybe a spring training game, and it never worked out. It always seemed to fall through, and he actually called me the night before our opening day here in the minor leagues. He called me on May 3rd and said, listen, leave these 2 dates open on June 4th and 5th. We may need you. And I said, sure, Ray. The dates are always open. They've been open for the last 4 or 5 years. And he texted me the morning of May 5th after we had our home opener, and he said, stay by your phone. He called me early that afternoon on May the 5th, my brother's birthday, and said, I've got bad news and good news. The bad news is you've got to miss your games in Trenton. The good news is that you're doing these games on June 4th and 5th with us. So I really couldn't speak when I found that out. It was really hard to process and comprehend. And then when I called my parents, I FaceTimed them, and they work together. So they kind of had a feeling that something was up if I FaceTimed them. And when I saw their faces on the screen, I broke down. I just said, we're going to the show. And that was it. It's the moment that you hear about players talk about all the time. It was very emotional. It's something that I'll never forget. It was, like I said, on my brother's birthday. So that certainly added to it for me and him. And it was just a really amazing moment for our family, and something that I loved and enjoyed. The nerves were there that first day, driving to the ballpark. I think the butterflies certainly got amped up. But then once we got into the game itself, the back and forth in the pregame show was a little nerve-wracking because then it became real. But then once first pitch was thrown and we were right back to it, it was like any other game that we've called over the years. And I was certainly happy with the way it turned out. I know the Mets people were happy with the way it turned out, and that's the most important thing.
Well, again, congratulations, Gregg. I'm glad that my Padres spoiled your big league debut, but you did get the broadcast to win the next day. Was there anything different calling games from Citi Field when it was happening at Petco Park across the country? Not only was it a late night for you, but you've got to utilize all those different monitors. And for most of us, we've seen how those setups are on Twitter, other places along social media. It's certainly become one of the themes of broadcasting baseball over the last 18 months. What was that like for you?
I was very jaded going into it. I thought that I wouldn't like it. I knew that there would be certain challenges with it because we've called so many games in live action from behind home plate. This was obviously a little bit different, but to be very honest with you, I got very comfortable with it quickly. I honestly felt like I was in my living room watching it on the couch. So for me, it was very relaxing in that regard. There's obviously some limitations because you're going off the center field camera that you see on television. Then you pivot to the all nine when you got to really get a look at the defensive alignments, with the shifting when runners were on the move. Obviously, you have to pivot your eyes a little bit more than you would have to as opposed to looking at the field directly. But in terms of calling it off the monitor, I enjoyed it. It actually made me feel like that classic adage of being at the bar and watching the game with your buddies. That's what I felt like at times calling it off the TV.
How many coffees did you have leading up to the game?
I would say my usual full pot in the morning and early afternoon. And then lately it hasn't been good. I've been going with sugar-free Red Bull and Diet Coke. So it's
gosh.
The nighttime remedies, Zick, have not been good. I mean, I've been going sugar-free, which is something I always do. But all the junk I'm putting in the system is not good.
Any menthol cigarettes with that?
That's something that we'll talk about.
Sugar-free Red Bull Diet Coke. Wow.
I would just go straight up. I wouldn't go menthol.
That's fair. Just give it to him straight, Marlboro Reds. That's Gregg Caserta, voice of the AAA Buffalo Bisons and also voice of the New York Mets. How cool is that? Gregg, hang out if you can, because we've got a new segment at the very end to try and lighten things up, although they're pretty light already in Around the Nest 2.0. And we thank you very much for your updates from AAA Buffalo. We'll bop down one level on the ladder, going to AA New Hampshire. And we have a legend joining us, folks. You met him at the top of the show, but of course, this is the man. If they needed one person from every state to be the representative on a broadcast, New Hampshire would send none other than Mr. Bob Lipman, the Big Lipper. Bob, you're joining us from Hadlock Field. What's on deck for the Cats tonight?
Zach Logue will be on the mound tonight, Zick, and I know you know him well. Big career debuts back in 2019 with the Fisher Cats, and he's been the ace of the Fisher Cats, a guy who started opening day. And you and I were talking about it before we started here. I don't think he's far away from getting a call up to AAA, showing command, some elevation in his fastball. And he looks very much like a polished pitcher who's in his final starts at the AA level.
And certainly looking forward to another terrific outing from Zach tonight. We will be tuning in on MILB TV and also through nhfishercats.com to get the radio call as well. Let's talk about something that happened last night that hadn't happened all season for New Hampshire, Bob. As you mentioned when we introduced you at the start of our show, the first save of the year for the Fisher Cats, and it comes in, what was it, game 33? So for them to finally figure it out in the later innings, that must have been nice to see.
Yeah, we officially were last of all the teams in the minor leagues. The New Hampshire Fisher Cats took 32 games to get their first save. I think there had only been one other opportunity to close out a game in the last inning. For the Fisher Cats, been a lot of one-sided kind of games or teams scoring late in games that made the difference. But it was actually kind of a surprise. It was the lefty out of our bullpen, Brody Rodning, who got the last 7 outs of the game last night without allowing a hit, that carried the Fisher Cats to the win.
You've seen more Fisher Cats baseball than anybody else on the planet. In fact, you've been in part of the
Actually,
mix.
there's one who has seen more.
Tell me who.
Did you know? One-time strength and conditioning coach Brian Pike
Oh,
has seen more games than I have because he was the full-time strength guy for 10 years.
when was his first season?
06.
So he had
a little gap in there and then came back. But if you do the math, he's ahead of me by a couple hundred games.
Brian Pike, well, another Granite Stater who certainly
Yes.
deserves our respect, appreciation, and of course, all of the celebration, because this is a guy who's done just about everything for the Blue Jays system and is now, I believe, down in Florida working at the complex. But all right, I will amend my statement. I'll say that the guy who has seen the second most amount of Fisher Cats baseball on the planet, Mr. Bob Lipman, this year, certainly lots of hope and high expectations, a roster ranked as one of the most prospect-laden in all of minor league baseball, but the record just doesn't show it. It's been some frustrating times in the bullpen, as we discussed. Some guys maybe not producing as well as you would like. We've heard Tyler Murray's take, but from a guy who has seen Fisher Cats baseball in every single season, what's happening with the Cats this year? Where is the disconnect?
We have really the tale of two when it comes to that offense. You heard Gregg talk a little while ago about, how that 2020 and players not playing would factor in. But when you look at how the starts that some of these guys at the top of the New Hampshire lineup are having this year, the top 5, this is probably the best that New Hampshire has ever been in terms of, and I'm talking about Otto Lopez and Gabriel Moreno, Austin Martin and Jordan Groshans, and now Samad Taylor, you have to put him in the mix as well. Top of the order has been so good for the Fisher Cats. They get out to early leads. Bottom part of the order, as you point out, hasn't produced much. But, I'm really excited for Blue Jays fans because that these guys are going to contribute down the road, likely for Toronto. Maybe they become part of trades down the road, but it certainly is an exciting time right now at AA.
Let's talk about a couple of Andy boys, Austin Martin and you, two guys who know how to anchor down. You had an opportunity to catch up with Austin for his first interview, really as a pro, being associated with one of the Blue Jays minor league teams. Of course, he's getting his first taste of pro ball this year. What are your takeaways from Austin, both from that conversation and what you've seen from the booth?
Yeah, so grounded. And a number of the guys that I've talked to have come through Tim Corbin's program. And by the way, Vandy beat East Carolina 2-0 today in the College World Series. Listen to that on the way up. So congratulations there. What Austin Martin is just very realistic. I mean, he knows that he's a AA ball player and he doesn't change anything about his work habits, puts in the time in the field, wants to be better defensively, puts in the time in the batting cage, and works to try to make all of the people around him better too. Because I think he knows that becoming that complete ball player involves taking on some leadership ability. And he's off to a terrific start here at AA.
We were chatting about this before the start of our podcast today, about how there are more and more Blue Jays prospects and minor leaguers coming through that Vanderbilt program. And in part, that's because there's a Vanderbilt connection in the Blue Jays brass. Can you share with all of us, or rather everybody at home, you already told me, what's going on at the top of the brass to be able to create that pipeline?
Well, Gil Kim, the player development director, is a Vandy grad and certainly knows as well as anyone that that program that Tim Corbin has put together at Vanderbilt, what it's all about. Their pitchers kind of have formed a club They all kind of work with each other. This goes back to, I interviewed David Price when he was pitching for Tampa Bay way back when, and it's remarkable on being able to bring that program at the college level and then seeing the success at the major league level. But they do things the right way, and I think that's one of the things the Blue Jays look for. We haven't had many Vandy guys over the years. Another one's Ryan Klosterman. He's the baseball coach now at Bryant in Rhode Island. But since then, I think Austin Martin's the first.
We do have another one here with Advanced Day Vancouver, Phil Clark, who we'll get to in just a minute when I give you the updates for the Canadians. But you never know. This could turn into pretty much a Vandy funnel program, if you will. But, there are worse things that could happen because, of course, we've seen what the Commodores have been able to do. Those Vandy boys, certainly year in and year out, whether as a team or as individuals, some of the most exciting college baseball you can find. Bob, before I give the updates for Vancouver, any final thoughts from the Fisher Cats update as we look ahead to the rest of the month of June? The boys going to be returning back home at some point, and eventually it'll be nice to play a team that's not the Sea Dogs or the Somerset Patriots, though we did get our first taste of the Binghamton Rumble Ponies last week.
Yeah, Fisher Cats in the month of June have struggled. They did get a win last night, but the number to look at is Samad Taylor, and a guy who came over to the Blue Jays organization a couple of years back. His splits for June, 441, 525, slugging percentage 1.525, leads the organization, or leads the team in home runs now with 8, and leads the league in steals, and is putting together, I think, quite a resume here.
Wait, those are good numbers?
It might be.
just decent from Samad Taylor.
15 for 34.
Well, certainly looking forward to Samad continuing to grow and
develop. He'll lead off tonight.
We're looking forward to him doing his thing, and we will be tuning in to Bob Lipman, who has the call tonight from Hadlock Field and all weekend right there in the Forest City of Portland, Maine. Bob, thanks for the update. Keep hanging out. We got one last segment we're all going to participate in at the very end. I'm going to make my update quick here for Vancouver as we want to get down to Lower Dunedin to talk to Mr. Andrew Thriffiley. But before we do, the Canadians are here in Spokane this week, taking on the Indians, Advanced Day affiliate of the Rockies. We're here at Avista Stadium, a lovely setup for some baseball. And after winning 7 in a row against the Indians, Vancouver lost against Spokane for the first time yesterday in a rare nooner that's not at the Nat. Canadians fans, of course, have come to know and love those nooners at the Nat throughout the season up there in Vancouver in the Lower Mainland. But of course, at the same time, as I'm continuing to, be a hot commodity as people continue to call and text me, but it's all good. We're doing it live as we do. But it's been terrific to see the guys, despite the loss yesterday, continue their consistent success against a foe that they're going to be very familiar with. 30 total games against Spokane this year, and an opportunity as well for the guys, just like Gregg was given the update for AAA, to get very familiar with an opponent. We haven't seen any of that frustration that Gregg was alluding to here with Vancouver just yet, though they have started to see teams multiple times. Though we did have our first ejection of the year. The skipper, Donnie Murphy, got his money's worth yesterday. A couple of ticky-tack calls and inconsistencies from the two-man umpiring crew in yesterday's afternoon game. And by the time it got to the 8th, with the score 8-0 Spokane, there was a hit by pitch call that was questionable. The guy started his swing, opened up his hips, and he got hit by a pitch. And of course, that's going to make any manager of the opposing team frustrated. So Donnie came out and let him have it, and he was quickly rung up. So I'm pretty sure he got personal pretty quick, but good to see D. Murph showing some fire as he always does and leading this club to what has been a successful start of the year. After yesterday's loss, 19-14 for the boys, and certainly feeling very good about the baseball that they've been playing of late. Tonight, an opportunity to see Adam Kloffenstein if he's been able to do some work he's needed to do to try and readjust. 3 consecutive starts where he was just off his game and looked uncomfortable. The thought process is that perhaps Klopp is overthinking a little bit and not just trusting his stuff. And that's easy to do for anybody, but especially when you're a 20-year-old top 10 prospect. The weight of expectation certainly is a lot heavier than any of the 4 of us can certainly be attested to. So for Klopp tonight, looking forward for him to continue to do his thing. Paxton Schultz, he's probably been the surprise of the season for the Canadians pitching staff. Every 6th day, he has become the Sunday starter. And when he goes out there under the sun, or on this Sunday at 5:09 Pacific, He has been the picture of consistency. 3 consecutive quality starts. He continues to locate his pitches up and down the count. He's not afraid to challenge guys either. When you go in, he goes in. He's not going to leave that over the inner half, and instead he's going to challenge guys right under their hands. So Schultz has been, for me, over the first month of the year, the biggest surprise and the most consistent guy in that rotation. Saw Luis Quinones yesterday. He took his first loss after coming back from the suspension and being terrific in his first 2 starts. He's still limited hits in that game, only gave up 2 hits through 4 innings pitched, and has only allowed, if I can do the mental math, has only allowed 4 total hits in what is now 14 innings pitched. So this is a guy who knows how to miss bats. 11 strikeouts in his previous start last week. He still racked up 8 Ks yesterday in 4 innings, though he did walk 6, which was the most by a Canadian starter this year. So that was the red flag from yesterday's 8-0 loss, but still signs of good things to come for Luis Quinones. And on the offensive side, Tanner Kerwere, not only is he the pride of Sherwood Park, Alberta, but he continues to be really the straw that stirs the drink at the top of the order. He is the leadoff man for Donnie Murphy day in and day out. We've only seen 2 other guys make appearances at the top of the order, but that is Kerwere's job day after day. And not only does he do it with his speed and with his contact, he also leads the team in home runs, albeit just 4. Vancouver with the least amount of home runs in the 6-team High A West, but still very much at the top of the mix in terms of the standings. So very much looking forward to some continued success for Tanner Kerwere. And who knows, maybe the bats will wake up. Maybe we'll see some more homers along the way. But at the end of the day, it's about development and about getting wins. And speaking of Vandy boys, as Bob was touching on, Phil Clark, he is the primary catcher for Donnie Murphy, splitting duties with Ryan Gold. And Clark, after going hitless in 8 consecutive games, put together a 4-game hitting streak until a couple of nights in which he was held off the base paths. But he still finds ways to contribute. And although he's still developing behind the plate, he's a very steady presence for this pitching staff. So certainly can tell he's got that Vanderbilt experience that puts him certainly maturity-wise at the top of the list, and he's been fun to watch. I should probably take a breath. That's a Canadians monologue. We miss out on having Tyler Murray on the nest for a number of reasons, one of which is for him to grill me about all things C's. But I'll leave y'all with this before we bring in Andrew from Low A Dunedin. There is a great chance that the Vancouver Canadians will return to Nat Bailey Stadium in 2021. Now, it's not for sure. Nothing is happening. As of now, we're acting as if we're going to play all of our games away from Vancouver and only stateside. But as soon as the provincial governments are going to give us the go-ahead, we will be ready. Team President Andy Dunn, our Vice President Tom Backemeyer, they have been working furiously to get that plan in place so that when we get the go-ahead, we'll be able to cross the border and welcome back Canadians baseball at its proper home of the Nat. So I can only imagine what that day is going to be like. And for any Vancouver residents listening to Around the Nest, keep doing what you're doing because it's working and things are getting better and better by the day. So as we look at the schedule, specifically those last 2 series of the year, which are scheduled to be home games for the C's, those could be games held at Nat Bailey. So keep those fingers crossed, keep looking out for one another up there in the lower mainland, and C's baseball returning to its rightful home in 2021. Nothing sounds better to me. So stay tuned. And of course, here on the Nest every week, we'll give updates as we continue to get closer and closer and closer to those borders opening up and us being able to return home. That's Advanced Day Vancouver. Now let's go all the way down to Low A Dunedin AT. You've moved locations. You went from the dugout to looks like the clubhouse. How's it going down there in Lakeland today on the road?
Yeah, the pregame music has started, so I wanted to save us all the music. So I moved into the clubhouse to help us all out.
Well, appreciate your consideration. That's a veteran move by you. So well done. And you know what? It's about as authentic of a background as you can find. A minor league clubhouse with a locker room with some nondescript clothing hanging up. You're looking good.
Yeah, just keeping it real for the fans.
That's what we're all about here on Around the Nest. Now, let's talk about the DJs. It's certainly after a month of May that I think we'd all like to forget. It's been a better June. Can you give us your overall picture as to what has been going better for Dunedin?
Yeah, I think it starts with the pitching. And I think the bullpen has been really good. It's been a lot of piggybacking. Trent Palmer made his debut last week, no hits. And then he comes back this week, goes 3 innings, still on a pitch count, but goes 3 innings, still gives up no hits. He gave up 2 earned runs after he walked 2. And then there was Julian Valdez gave up a home run, but still no hits for him. So he's playing well. Joel Concepcion went 6 relief innings, last week against the Marauders. only 1 earned run, so he's pitching well. Sam Roberse is also playing very well. He his last 2 outings across both, he's gone 9 innings, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 14 strikeouts. So I think he's on the top 30 list, and I think he's a name to look out for going forward. But the bats and like I said last week, we've just been waiting for the bats and the pitching to come together, and I think we're starting to see that.
Always good news when the DJs start to figure it out. Can you give us an update on Irelvas Martinez? What's going on with one of the Blue Jays' top prospects?
Again, consistency from O. He's gone 6 hits in his last 7 games, had a home run last night. That was an absolute missile. So I think that's what you just keep looking for. The defense, just keep watching it improve week after week. But that bat's just always going to be there, and we'll see how much longer he's here.
We had Adrian Hernandez promoted to Vancouver last week, and he made his debut with the Seas 2 nights ago and was fantastic. He looked terrific and even walked off the field after striking out the side, doing the Conor McGregor, Trevor Bauer strut, but a very muted version of it, which I respected. So nice to see he's got a little bit of that chutzpah that certainly proved to be so successful over his final 6 outings there with Dunedin.
The coaches like to say, and even players, I think when you get compliments from other players, it's always a high praise. Talking about that changeup that he has, could be an 80 grade changeup. If you think about, obviously no one's going to go straight to the majors from low A, but if you think of a guy that could possibly get an out or 2 in the majors right now, that changeup could probably do it from Adrian Hernandez.
Is there a guy who's now the new stud now that Adrian Hernandez has been promoted? Is there somebody else who's going to be able to fill that role? You talked about Sam Roberse a little bit, but some other guys potentially as well.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of piggybacking, but I think you look at Alejandro Meleon. He's been pitching very well out of the bullpen for us. He went 4 last night, got the save. And I think you also look at Gabriel Ponce. He's got a ton of strikeouts, 30 strikeouts this year in 14 innings. So I think those 2 guys are names to watch going forward out of the pen.
Before we wrap up with you, Andrew, and our update from Low A Dunedin, is the month ahead smiling upon the DJs in terms of schedule? It was a lot of Tampa Tarpons in May, and certainly nice to not have to play the Yankees affiliate as much as y'all did over the first month of the year.
Yeah, I think if you look at our schedule, we played the Tampa Tarpons twice, who are at the top of our division right now and on top of the league. And then you also look at the Marauders, who are right behind them, who are playing well. They have great pitching. We held in it with them. So I think the schedule will certainly turn around for us. And I think you're going to see us start to rattle off some wins here pretty soon.
Andrew Thriffiley from Low A Dunedin, thanks for the update. And as we make it to our final segment here on this edition of Around the Nest, we're going to stick with you, AT, because I want to know, as we call this new segment, Spread 'em, we want you to tell us what the best and worst post-game spread you've seen either in a clubhouse or if it's in the press box, could be the press meal. Can you give us a little bit about what the life is like for the stomachs of the Low A Dunedin lifestyle, or perhaps previous seasons when they were an advanced A club?
I think we're very fortunate being directly tied to the Toronto Blue Jays. We get some very quality meals. Last night was a great meal, a nice chicken teriyaki with rice and veggies. Can't go wrong with that. It's probably a favorite of mine. No free ads, but you got to love the different local sub shops in the areas. If I have to go with the worst, I know a lot of the guys on our team obviously love it. The Latin food for them is great. They like their plantains and they like their chicken, but the plantains for me are just not something that I thoroughly enjoy, but I can see why they love them.
Well, you know what? That is about as diplomatic of an answer as you could have given. Can you tell us why the plantains aren't it for you, Andrew? I mean, are you going for the savory ones or the sweet ones? Because I could see how the savory ones, maybe to our palate, isn't as enjoyable, though I like them both.
They're the sweet ones, but I think it's just a texture thing for me, if I'm being honest.
Maybe like eating slugs. So you've got a little Harry Potter vibes there,
exactly.
You know, when they're puking up the slugs. I get it. Well, AT, thanks for being our inaugural victim in this edition of Spread 'em. I will tell you this, for me personally, the best experience I've had at a ballpark has been in Harrisburg. And I think Bob and Greg can talk about this. Probably the finest press box food you'll find anywhere, because they don't bring food up to the press box. They give you a ticket to go down to their home plate club. I was eating shrimp etouffee at the ballpark at one point back in 2019. So you really can't go wrong. And that's a place where, you know, I've never met a free meal that I didn't like. But at the same time, I was filling up a plate to take back with me to the radio booth and take home to the hotel that night. and to be able to enjoy all sorts of gourmet cuisine on City Island there at Harrisburg and the Susquehanna River, certainly a treat. And on the other end, I think Bob can attest to this. There were a couple of spreads in 2019 back at Delta Dental Stadium that certainly were pretty much left in the chafing dish by the players and by the staff. And I would find my way in there after emceeing games at Delta Dental Stadium as the on-field MC, hoping to get any kind of sustenance. And even when I was turning it down, it was almost like, oh, it was so bad the dog wouldn't eat it. It was so bad that Zick wouldn't eat it. And there were a couple of times where some questionable usage of peas and way more iceberg lettuce and cabbage than should be legally allowed. So we won't, no free ads. And I'm not going to deride the company that provided those catering meals. But let's just say this, it rhymes with agitations. And we'll leave it at that. Bob may know what I'm talking about. And Tyler Murray certainly would. We can laugh with him later. So that's my addition to Spread'em. Yeah, tell him, Bob.
The chicken was well done at 5:30, let alone when you got to it.
Yeah, that's right. I'm dragging in there at 10:30 p.m. and safe to say I could have played bags or cornhole with some of those chicken slices or a little disc golf. But Bob, let's keep it with you. You've seen a lot of post-game spreads in your day. Any place that stands out for you?
Well, traveling around, and again, I love the local flair that you get. Reading had done a great job as well, bringing meals from outside and Akron. In New Hampshire, though, a couple years back, Zick, we had Bread Bowl New England clam chowder, which made a terrific pregame meal. And I mean, it was top notch. I don't know whether they were making it in-house or bringing it in, but if you put that in a nice bread bowl, that was one of the best press meals that we've had. And then, on the negative side, I clearly go along with it. If I see a chicken breast, I'm like, oh, because everybody feels that you have to cook it till it's like leather anyway. And then it doesn't usually work out too well. So kind of skip on those, but enjoyable times. What am I going to get here in Portland tonight? I think you already know. It's got a little box. It's got a hot dog in it, or it's got maybe a chicken fajita sub or something like that, and a bag of chips.
They are pretty consistent. I have to give credit to them. They do a nice job of letting you know what's coming, and has a Sea Dog biscuit past your lips this week.
No, but I reminded the crew. Tyler Murray and Nathan Strauss were up here this week, and I said, make sure you get your Sea Dog biscuit, the 2 chocolate chip cookies with the ice cream between it. That's one to have here.
Unbeatable for sure. Bob, thanks for your update on this edition of Spread'em. And Gregg Caserta, you might be perhaps the guy I would pick from the nest to, if you weren't a broadcaster, be a food critic. Not only do you have a refined palate, but you've got an opinion or 6. So would you tell us about what might be your best and worst experiences with food in the press box or the clubhouse?
So I was so excited when I saw the rundown because I couldn't wait for this segment. As you know, it's my addiction, my hobby, my passion. So I got to thinking about it. So the end of the 2019 season, when I was still with Reading, we had Jay Bruce rehabbing with us, and he was here for 2 days, and they were playing the Thunder, and he picked up 2 full days worth of spreads. The dinner spread night one was Outback Steakhouse, where he had probably 2 steaks for every guy, loaded baked potatoes and broccoli. The following night, he went and got a sushi spread from a Japanese place and also had fried rice, lo mein, chicken teriyaki. So those were 2 really good days. Jay Bruce was a really good dude. And the fact that he picked up 2 really good spreads, obviously, we'll always hold him in high regard for that. Going back to the 2014 and 2015 seasons when I was in the Florida State League, before the teams got involved and really got into the catering aspect of things and incorporating more nutritional foods and dietitians and things like that, if we had a 6-game homestand, I would say 3 nights out of the week, it was chicken on the bone. And I hate chicken on the bone. I know Bob talked about chicken breast. I can deal with that. I know a lot of times it's overcooked, but I can deal with it. But chicken on the bone, dude, I am done with it. I never want to see it again. I am scarred for life. So No mas.
No chicken on the bone for chicken a la Gregg. We're here for that. Speaking of chicken in Trenton, are they still serving chicken tenders in the press box at Arm & Hammer Park?
Yeah, we had them last night. We had a double header, so I probably had 4 or 5 of them throughout the game. So, obviously really taking care of everything over here, Zick, as I eat my way through more fried foods.
Yeah, a face for radio and a body too. Gentlemen, thank you for appeasing me there. Our inaugural edition of Spread 'em, we'll try and mix it up and have some fun to mix in with our prospect news and happenings around the system. Fellas, we've reached another episode end. And before we say goodbye and close shop here on episode 5, any last words, any last plugs? Actually, if each of you could tell us how to keep up with what's happening with your respective teams. Andrew, I know we talked before we got started. When are the DJs going to hire a broadcaster or somehow be able to broadcast the games? Not this season, you said, but there are still ways fans can keep in touch with the DJs. Can you tell us how they can do that?
Yeah, follow us on Dunedin Blue Jays across any platform on social media, and I'll give you the highlights of what's going on throughout a game, and I'll try to keep you informed as best as possible, because I know, especially our family of our players and friends as well, want to know what's going on with their friends. So hopefully we can provide some of that at least.
AT, they'd be lost without you down there. Thanks for your continued work. You're in Lakeland this weekend with the Flying Tigers taking on the DJs. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Around the Nest. We'll bring in Bob Lipman. Tell us how we can find you, Bob.
At hfishercats.com. You can follow the home games at milb.tv. Follow the Fisher Cats on Twitter and Facebook, and any number of good websites, I think, throughout the organization. They do a pretty good job following our prospects as well.
Thank you, Bob Lipman, voice of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, along with Tyler Murray. And for me, the one and only guy I choose to broadcast in the Granite State, Mr. Bob Lipman. Thank you, Bob. And finally, Triple G, Big League Gregg Caserta. Where can we find Bison's broadcast now that you're back from your time at Citi Field?
920 ESPN New Jersey is our flagship station. They have their own app, so that is the flagship station for all our home broadcasts. TrentonThunder.com, of course, and BuffaloBisons.com. The Bisons have been doing a great job, not only with tweeting out video clips during games of MILB TV, but they do daily game notes. They're still running their media department, like the team's still in town there at Salem Field. They do a kind of a bi-weekly notebook in which they keep up on guys, even when the team's out of town and not here in Trenton. So Pat Malacaro, Brad Bisping, 2 friends of the program, as I like to say, Zick. They've been doing a great job with all the Bisons content as well.
Cheers to you, Gregg. Thank you very much. And as always, so good to have you back. And we'll talk about those alien probes off the record. So thanks again for your time. Congrats again on the big league opportunity. Looking forward to more of that in your future for sure. Before we say goodbye, you can catch Canadians baseball not only on Sportsnet 650 and on sportsnet.ca, but canadiansbaseball.com is the place to go as well for all things Canadians baseball. And check us out on social media by searching Van Canadians. That's it for another round of Around the Nest. My goodness, 5 episodes in, and it feels like just yesterday when we got things started here with Around the Nest 2.0. For my co-hosts, Andrew Thriffiley, Bob Lipman, and Gregg Caserta, and our producer, Leo Mui, I'm Tyler Zickel saying so long until next week on Around the Nest.